The Nothing Phone 2 is here. A new chip, bigger screen, and bigger battery. But how good is it really? We are going to compare it to its predecessor, the Nothing Phone 1, Pixel 7, Samsung Galaxy S23, the new Moto Razr, and for reference, the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Now first of all, let's charge them up. Now before you freak out, I know the iPhone is twice the price, but it has been the battery king for a while now, and I'm curious if the Nothing Phone 2 can dethrone it. The others are similar in terms of price, so I think this should be a pretty fair comparison. In terms of charging rates, the Phone 2 with 45 watts is surprisingly leading the bunch. To be honest, none of them are particularly fast, at least on paper. I'm talking 100 watt plus, but there are a bunch of other phones available, plenty of which are also cheaper, but these don't have this. The predecessor, the Phone 1, has 33 watts, closely followed by the Motorola at 30. Next up is the iPhone. Apple doesn't officially say how many watts it supports, but tests have shown it's around 27 watts. That's slightly above the Samsung. And in last place, we have the Pixel 7 with only 20 watts supported. At the moment, these numbers don't seem to mean too much, and that mainly comes down to the battery capacities. The Phone 2 has the biggest battery, an increase of 200 mAh over its predecessor. The rest sits slightly below that, except for the S23, which only has a pretty small battery at 3,900 mAh. It's crazy to think about that the Motorola still has a decently large battery, because remember, it can fold in half. Now 50% charged in 30 minutes is usually the benchmark advertised by manufacturers. Nothing Phone 1, Samsung, Motorola, and the iPhone actually surpassed this. The Phone 2 is just below it, and the Pixel unfortunately is very far off. Maybe something's wrong with my device. At 45 minutes, we're finally approaching some decent percentages, except for the Pixel, which still doesn't even have half charged. Again, don't know what's wrong with it. Just past the hour mark, the Motorola finished charging, which is a pretty good result. Anything at around an hour or more isn't crazy fast charging, but 61 minutes really isn't a long time to wait for your phone to charge. And it is faster than expected, given it only charges at 30 watts. Both Nothings are in a tight race. The Phone 1 was actually a minute faster, but I'd say that's within margin of error. Phone 2 has quite a bit faster charging on paper, but it also has a bigger battery, so I guess it evens out. But I still thought it would charge a bit faster though, and it's also advertised to do so. Still both decent results. Next up is the Samsung at 1 hour and 15 minutes. Still decent, but not all that fast given its small battery. By now, only the iPhone and Pixel remain. Let's fast forward this a bit because it still took a while. The iPhone decreased charging speed dramatically past 80%, even though I turned off optimized charging on all phones. The last 20% took 44 minutes. If you don't need a full charge, it's not too bad, but if you charge it all the way, it's pretty damn slow. I guess the Pareto principle really applies here. The Pixel, on the other hand, was just consistently slow. It took nearly 2 hours to fully charge, which is unacceptable. 1 hour and 53 minutes is just very slow, and I guess Google didn't get the memo. Now that all of them are fully charged, let's move on to the battery test. As always, all phones are in the same exact settings with Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and location enabled. There's no SIM card in either of them, and I've matched the brightness on all of them to keep it all fair. So far, it looks like another iPhone dominance, but let's see if it stays that way. In second place, however, surprisingly, is the Motorola. There's a bunch of hype around Nothing Phone 2, but a common criticism is that not much has changed. Well, let's see if the performance and battery life have. Currently, it's somewhere in the middle. Now, gaming drains the Motorola a bit more than the others, and now all of them are closer within each other. The iPhone is still in the lead, and the Samsung is starting to fall a little behind, with the Nothing Phone 2 firmly in second place now, which is nice to see, but there's still a long way to go and a lot can still happen. Let me quickly tell you about this video's sponsor, Dr.Fone by Wondershare. Dr.Fone is basically your complete phone manager. It lets you back up and transfer all your files from one phone to another with just one click. In case you ever have any lost data or deleted something by accident, it can even recover that data. And if for some reason something ever goes wrong with your phone's software, it can fix that as well. For example, a boot loop. And it of course has many more features. Personally, my favorite feature is WhatsApp transfer. It allows you to back up and transfer your WhatsApp chats and media between Android and iOS and vice versa. If you've ever done that before, you know what a pain that can be. With Dr.Fone, all of your data will be safe and you won't lose anything in the process of switching phones. You can try Dr.Fone for free using the link below, and thanks again to Wondershare for sponsoring this part of the video. Now let's continue with the battery test. In the meantime, not much has changed in terms of battery life. The Nothing Phone 2 is consistently trailing the iPhone by 3%. The Phone 1 and the Pixel are in a close race, and the Motorola has now dropped below the Samsung. We've already talked about the battery capacities. Here they are again. But the part that drains the battery the most on a smartphone is the display. And here the only thing they really have in common is they're all 1080p or AMOLED panels, except for the iPhone, which has a slightly higher resolution. Their screens, however, are all different sizes. The Nothing Phone 2 is slightly bigger than the Phone 1. The Motorola has the biggest screen at 6.9 inches, but remember, it's also foldable. The Samsung has the smallest one at only 6.1 inches, but to be honest, it makes it sit quite comfortable in the hand. By the way, there's also a larger Plus model and of course the S23 Ultra if you want a bigger version. They're quite a bit more expensive though. I was contemplating including those in the test because they are similar size as the Nothing Phone 2, but decided to go with the regular S23 based on the price as it's much closer to the Nothing Phone 2. But back to the displays, where they also differ is in terms of brightness and refresh rates. Firstly, brightness, the iPhone technically gets the brightest, with the Samsung just behind. The Phone 2 also got a decent bump in brightness, but keep in mind, for this test I've matched them all, so it doesn't affect this test at all. What does have an impact on the test is the refresh rates. All of them are higher than the standard 60 Hz. The Pixel goes up to 90 Hz, while the rest go up to 120 Hz. The Motorola even goes up to 144 Hz, but if I'm being honest, you can't really tell a difference between that and 120 Hz. The biggest upgrade of the Nothing Phone 2 in terms of the display is the display technology. It now uses an LTPO panel, which allows the refresh rate to adjust automatically to what's on screen. It can even go all the way down to 1 Hz. That means it's now on par with the iPhone and even superior to the Samsung. The Phone 1 and the Pixel unfortunately can't do this and can only change between 60 and 90 or 120 Hz. At 5 hours, the Phone 2 caught up with the iPhone, which is crazy to see, but iPhones tend to over-report how full the battery really is at high percentages to keep people from overcharging, so maybe now it's showing its real percentage. In terms of performance, they all have different chips. The iPhone and the Pixel use custom-made processors, while the others stick with Snapdragons. Phone 2 has also gotten an upgrade from the mid-range 7 series to a flagship 8 series chip. It is, however, the previous generation flagship chip. Nevertheless, it is a massive upgrade from its predecessor. In terms of performance, it's firmly in third place after the iPhone and the Samsung, both of which are still a decent step up from the Phone 2. There's also a clear distinction between flagship and mid-range chips. The Phone 1, Pixel, and Motorola are consistently worse than the other three. But don't worry, this only applies to benchmarks. In day-to-day usage, you won't really notice this. This round of benchmarks was obviously very intense and drained the battery quite a lot. And since we don't use our phones non-stop throughout the day, we're now going to take a break and do a standby test. If you're enjoying this video so far, make sure to smash the like button to show your support. They were in standby for about 7 hours, and the results are quite interesting. The Nothing Phone 1, Samsung, and iPhone only lost 2% overnight, the Motorola 3%, and the Pixel and the Phone 2 4%. That's not a lot, but still double of what the predecessor lost. Anyway, we're now in decent battery life territory, so let's keep going. Zoom is always very intense, and the percentages are plummeting like the stock market. The Motorola is the first to issue a low battery warning, and nearly 7.5 hours in, the Nothing Phone 2 actually takes the lead and surpasses the iPhone. And it also has double the battery percentage left of the Phone 1. Now just at the 8-hour mark, the Motorola is the first to go. All the others are still in this, which is pretty impressive, and they're doing better than I thought. But as time goes on, only the Nothing Phone 2 and the iPhone are in it to win it. The question is, who will actually win it? It all took a while for this test to finish, so let's fast forward this and let's finally get to the results. In 6th place, we have the Motorola at 7 hours and 59 minutes. It's not a terrible result, but nothing great either. Keep in mind, this is a flip phone, so you will be sacrificing some battery life for that folding mechanism. And on the other hand, it does have the fastest charging out of the bunch. If you want decent battery life but don't need the best, this might still be a great option because it is the first somewhat affordable flip phone, and I personally quite like it. I will be doing a full foldable smartphone battery test, so make sure you subscribe to not miss that video. In 5th place, however, we have the Nothing Phone 1 at 8 hours and 30 minutes. A decent result, but nothing special. Charging was also pretty fast, and now that it's been out for over a year now, you can actually get a great deal on this, so I think this is a great value for money. In 4th place, with the Pixel 7 at 9 hours and 12 minutes. This is a pretty good result, and overall I'd say this phone is a great value for money. It's a great overall package, and it probably has the best camera out of the bunch. It can even rival the iPhone, which is very impressive. Unfortunately, charging is insanely slow, so make sure you get everything done on a single charge and then charge it overnight, because there's no real fast charging on this device. In 3rd place, lasting just a couple minutes longer, we have the Samsung Galaxy S23 at 9 hours and 19 minutes. It's a pretty good result, but still nothing to write home about. I do think it did really well given its small size and small battery capacity. Charging speed is also decent. I personally really like this phone because it's so compact while not making any real sacrifices. In previous generations, you always had to sacrifice battery life, but with the S23, that is no longer the case. Now the question is, who actually won it? The iPhone or the Nothing Phone 2? In second place, we actually have the iPhone 14 Pro Max. At 10 hours and 20 minutes, it's still an incredible result, but it's finally been dethroned. I feel like newer software updates, it's now on iOS 16.6, did decrease the battery life a bit, maybe because we're approaching the iPhone 15 launch, who knows, but it's still very good battery life and will last you the whole day without question. Charging is unfortunately quite slow, especially past 80%. In first place, however, we have the Nothing Phone 2 at 10 hours and 43 minutes. It is an incredible result and is now the new battery king. Charging speed is also decently fast. This shows that it is a bigger upgrade than expected. It did so much better than the Nothing Phone 1, and I'd say it's a great value for money. Sure, it's gotten quite a bit more expensive, but if you can afford it, this is a great value. And don't forget, it beat out the iPhone 14 Pro Max, which costs nearly double what the Nothing Phone 2 costs. What do you guys think of these results? Let me know your thoughts down below. Watch this video next and make sure you subscribe to not miss any of my upcoming videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one.